Hello, this is Welcome to Tree Town. I am your host, Ryan McCooch, back with another episode for you guys. And today I'm with Mike Lorenc. Mike, thank you again for coming out and talking to us for a little bit.
Of course, happy to be here. Thanks for doing it.
Absolutely. Well, you're one of the most faithful watchers. I see you tweet about it every now and then. It always warms my heart to be like, someone is listening to what I have to say.
No, it's becoming a Thursday morning tradition, absolutely.
Oh, perfect. Well, you'll be able to listen to yourself. I know there's conflicting interests. People like Alex, I think he mentioned that he hasn't watched himself. I think Alex can tweet at me if he has or hasn't. But it's always weird to hear yourself talk.
Yeah,
you know?
I'll probably skip that one.
Very funny. But in terms of the content of the matter, why we had you on, we talked a little bit before this, and you mentioned you bring a little bit of a different dynamic to sort of the club and the organization. So can you talk about your background and your day job?
Sure. So I'll start with the day job. So yeah, I work at Google. I run a team that works with professional sports and leagues.
How long have you been at Google?
16 years.
Wow.
Long time. long time ago. Yeah. So yeah, but for the past 7 years roughly, I built a team here in Arbor, and we work with the largest ticketing companies as well as the professional leagues and teams. Mm-hmm. So the digital sports marketing, that is my day job. This is the expertise that I bring to the table, and I think that's something that attracted the other ownership group as well as myself.
Yeah.
Being able to combine kind of what I do on a daily job, on a very high level, working with the leagues, and try to distill it and bring some of the best practices on a semi-professional, amateur level soccer. It's different, but ultimately it's the same. Right.
So how do you make the leap from sports marketing and working at Google to deciding AFC Ann Arbor is something you want to pursue?
Yeah. So I came to Ann Arbor 11 years ago.
Okay.
And initially, so I came here to help open up our offices here. Mm-hmm. Initially thinking and anticipating it will be kind of a 2-year corporate assignment. After that, probably go out west and kind of do that thing. And after a year and a half, 2 years, decided that this is a place. It feels like home. Okay. So decided to stay in Ann Arbor, and with that came desire to be part of the community rather than just be a transplant. Okay. So starting to look at things to get involved with education, doing some things with Eastern Michigan University, some other universities in the area, joining some of the nonprofits. And then I was always a soccer fan. I'm from Poland originally.
Right.
We played soccer, we talked soccer, we watched soccer a lot. I actually interned for Chicago Fire during their first year in 96, 97. So being connected with Bilal, Rishi, Jamie, some of the guys, it just seemed like a very natural and perfect mix.
Right. Yeah. In terms of, you mentioned you came here years ago. I won't say years and years, but where did you live previously? You were from Poland originally.
Yes. Well, so initially I was an exchange student.
Okay, really?
Yes, in Clio, Michigan.
Okay,
a very small community between Flint and Saginaw. So years ago. So I was 92, came in to the U.S. As an exchange student. Actually spent a couple years living in Flint. I still have friends over there. I love going back. Then kind of went all over the place. Moved to Chicago, lived there for a little bit, lived out East Coast, lived in New York for a little bit and some of the areas, back in Chicago, went out west, lived in Seattle, love Seattle. That's where the Seattle Sounders connection comes. Right. Then had a chance to go back with Google to Poland and open up offices in Poland and a number of other offices.
Very
over there.
Cool. Okay.
So yeah, I've up till moving to Ann Arbor and staying here for now 11 years, I haven't been anywhere longer than 2 years.
You've been all over the place.
Yeah, kind of, yes.
That's incredible because you travel a lot right now as well.
Yes,
and you have your own travel Instagram as well.
Oh well, it's a personal Instagram.
It's a personal.
I just rebranded it, so yeah, it's work life travels.
Yes.
I love taking pictures. It's my Instagram's full of either travel stuff, my kids, my dogs, or AFC stuff.
The most important things in life.
There you go.
Honestly.
Exactly.
Where are some of your favorite places that you've traveled?
So again, I'm very fortunate. I travel a lot for work. I love doing it for fun, kind of personal as well. Was able to go to World Cup last summer. So saw Poland, Senegal play in Moscow. We didn't quite win. but being in Russia during the World Cup was amazing.
Can you talk a bit about that experience? Because I've never been to a World Cup, and I assume most of the viewers as well haven't.
Yep.
So what is that like?
So actually, my first one was I was here in the US. In 92, actually stuck around. I actually came back to go to college in 94. So my first experience was World Cup 94. And actually I went to the old Silverdome to watch Brazil play Sweden in a group round. And that was great. It was a great experience being there. But honestly, doesn't compare at all to having a World Cup in one of the soccer or football countries.
Yeah.
So everybody lives and breathes football, soccer.
Right. Yeah.
It's all about World Cup. So going in Russia, we went on to only one game. It was me, my sister, and my boys, my kids. We went to the game. The festivities start way before. So you have people. It was Poland versus Senegal. Polish fans. Probably about 70-80% of the whole stadium.
Okay.
But Senegalese, they had their group, and they were wearing their warrior tribe kind of outfits. They were being very loud, very very fun.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that you notice right away. Everybody's there to enjoy the game.
Yeah.
It's the experience. It's very very festive. You don't really worry too much about some of the bad parts of maybe some of the football matches out in Europe.
Right.
People are just having fun. They're there to enjoy themselves. You take lots of pictures with others. There was a guy that was at the game wearing a full sombrero, kind of like a Mexican outfit, and we ended up talking and taking pictures together.
Very cool.
So that was amazing. Fan zone. So we went to one game, but then we spent lots of time at one of the fan zones. So the fan zone that they had in Moscow was probably. There was enough room for 30,000 people.
Okay,
people were going there. It was big. There were huge number of screens you could watch games, but it was the interactions with other fans. There were people from anywhere, from Peru, from Tunisia, from European countries, from Russia, from Argentina, and they're all bonded by their love of the game.
Yeah.
So one of my highlights was Jacob. My 16-year-old brought a soccer ball with him, and we were kind of going to watch a game, maybe get something to eat. Next thing I know, him and my 12-year-old Noah are in a circle with about 30 people wearing jerseys of almost every country, just kicking the ball around.
That's such a great visual.
So it was amazing, just the seeing this connection, and people of every age, every race, every gender, just being really bonded by soccer, kind of reinforced what I love about this game, and the reason that I really wanted to be part of this club, part of the foundation, and have a small part in building the game here in the US.
Absolutely. It's something where the World Cup, you have, thousands of people from 32 different countries.
Yes.
And I can imagine how that's just it's incredible. That's so cool. And for you to be able to experience that, it's just, that sounds like an absolute dream.
It was one of those bucket list things, and I'm really glad we're able to do it. And now I'm trying to figure out how I can go to the next one, how I can stick around. So when we are hosting here in the US, I can definitely go to even more games than I had in the past.
Yes. Yeah. Veering back more a bit towards AFC, something that you're very involved in is the community and the Mighty Oak Youth Project. Can you talk a little bit about that for those who may not be familiar with it, and what some of your favorite aspects about it are?
Yeah, so when we started the club, and 5 years ago, we always had this vision of not just being a good neighbor, but doing our part in being part of the broader Arbor and then broader soccer community. So Jamie talks a lot about he came here from Ohio. He wasn't necessarily a collegiate Michigan fan. He wanted something to cheer for.
Right.
And Arbor, there's actually lots of transplants. There's lots of people that come here either through university connection or lately through the tech scene that are new to the city, maybe have allegiance with some other university, but they want to be part of that. So
sometimes that's easy to forget with how big the university as a whole is.
Yes, and again, it's a huge part. But when it comes to athletics, it's almost like right now the only choice, where people maybe are looking for some other choices. So that's like one of the aspects. Another one. So again, having two kids, I realized very quickly how big youth soccer is in this area. And actually, most people don't realize Michigan is one of the leading states in the U.S. On per capita, we actually have twice as many youth players than Florida, for example. So youth soccer is popular. I coach my kids' teams. I was kind of involved with that as much as I could, and wanted to be a bigger part of that. So initially, we did have this vision. We wanted to start with the club. We wanted to build it to be sustainable, to be successful. But the vision was always to expand our, if you will, sphere of influence. So announcing women's club was something that we were working towards. And then last year, we also kind of another part was the foundation. So the Mighty Oak Youth Project is really a foundation that we envisioned that will help grow the sport in initially Washtenaw County. And kind of our three initiatives are, number one, and that's what we started with. We as a club, we're not huge fans of the pay for play scheme of the soccer in the US. But it is the reality. So we wanted to concentrate on something that is manageable enough that we could make a difference. So last year we announced scholarships for some of the kids that already played soccer, that have the skill, that are quite good, but for financial or economic reasons would not be able to continue their soccer experience. So we ended up funding scholarships for some of the kids to continue playing. We also did lots of things with community kicks, as well as just the equipment drive, helping some of the local schools, elementary schools, just donating soccer balls, jerseys, some of the basic equipment. The other part, which we just announced this year, is to try to increase the quantity and quality of coaches, especially female coaches.
I was going to ask you, because there's a similar program with coaching scholarships as well.
Yes. So actually, I was talking to one of our neighbors, Caroline. She might be listening later. So hey, Caroline.
Hi, Caroline.
And she so she has 3 boys and a girl, and they're very active in sports. They play lots of hockey, and actually, Caroline was talking about how hard it is for young female players in soccer, but also in other sports, to find role models, to find female coaches that they can really look up to. I looked at some numbers, and in the US, girls account for almost half of youth soccer when it comes to participants, 47%. There is only 15% of female coaches.
Wow!
So there's a
stark contrast.
There's a stark contrast, and actually that's one of the reasons that many of the young girls stop playing soccer.
Really?
That they would prefer to play it if they saw some of the female role models, if they could play and model some of those players or coaches longer term. So when we establish, or when we announce women's team, it seemed like a great opportunity to not only allow the women that play to a chance to continue to hone their skills and to play in a formalized semi-professional level, but also to give them the tools, to give them opportunity to train and to coach. So we announced scholarship for our players who will be able to use some of the funds towards either getting the very basic coaching license, or if they're already licensed coaches, to allow them to improve and hone their skill and get higher level licenses.
Okay, that's very cool, because like you said, it's always great to see more representation, especially with females in not just playing, of course, but as coaches as well. And that number that you said, 15% of youth coaches are women. That seems very small for almost half of all youth soccer players.
Yes, and I think it'll be interesting to see. Ours is a very small contribution, but I'd love to see and compare. 2-3 years from now, like did that make a difference? Will there be other groups, organizations that maybe step up? I really believe that's the impact of a potential impact of our women's team on the community, that there will be more girls, young women that will be able to see that if they're passionate for soccer, they can continue to play. They don't have to stop playing at the middle or a high school level. And then also there will be more coaches female coaches and role models for those girls.
Absolutely, that's huge. As we talked about with when Megan and Taylor were on the podcast as well, it's something very important for these young girls to see that you can continue to play and you can even go on to coach as well. And I think that's something that's very cool that will happen.
Yep.
Now, talking a bit about the season as a whole, I talked to Jamie a bit, and we talked a bit about seasonal expectations. How are yours as a part club owner?
Yep.
Is it something that the organization always strives for excellence, and is that something that you also say? Do you have these similar hopes for the season?
Yes. So here's where I hesitate. It's minor league sports. There's a very big turnover. So in our league, there are new clubs that pop in and out. The players.
I was going to say teams generally have almost entirely new rosters.
Exactly. Something that we really pride ourselves in. We want to provide the coaching environment that will allow our players to be much, much better. With that comes not a risk, because it's an opportunity, but there's an opportunity for some of those players to move up to play professionally, and we've seen that for the past couple of years. Between Stanley and Novotny and Lars, some of our players are starting to get signed by professional clubs. So there's a turnover over there. Another example. Dario and Hector.
Yeah.
Great members of our club that came here. Actually, we were the first club that they played for after deflecting from Cuba. They ended up moving closer to kind of their environment that they're playing in Miami.
Right.
So and it's something that I think distinguishes us from other clubs. We really pull for those guys. We cheer for them. Even when they leave the organization. So you accept certain level, a very high level of turnover. So there's always this unknown getting to the season. Here is where our comfort level is. Eric and the coaching staff are amazing. Right. They've established a very strong culture. I think the players that we recruit get better and better because of the reputation of the club and the culture and what they hear about the coaching, as well as results, not just us as a club, and we have been successful for the past couple of years. So with that comes appetite to get better.
Yes.
For me, another measure of success is looking at the guys that play for us and how well they perform during their collegiate season. So as soon as we finish our season, the players that have spent 2-3 months with us, they usually have career seasons right after that.
Yeah.
So that again, that's a measure of success. When it comes to this season, the regional cup eluded us, and we were so close a number of times, and there were lots of heartbreakers. So yes, we want to take this next step. We want to put a team together that will. We want to host the cup.
Yes.
It's football. Sometimes a bad break happens. So you want it. You can't say that it's either that or bust.
Right.
From the business or community aspect, again, I mentioned the whole idea of sustainability. So being able to run this club for a long term, not over investing short term. So then we have to worry about being in the red or folding, but actually building it with a long-term vision. So starting with men's team, now having women's team, having this space, which is amazing. I think we are definitely on the right path, and we want to continue doing that. So, anything like increase in attendance, increase in social media interaction, something that's my day job and this hobby, this passion are kind of combined. Trying to see how our brand increases. Anything from the brand perception, do people perceive us as being the good neighbor, as being the representative of high level soccer, as well as the brand experience.
Right.
We'll finally have a long term home venue.
Yes, I know people are very excited about that.
Exactly. So being able to plan for that and try to bring in certain level of expectations for families, for kids, for young adults, for everybody that comes to our game, and have it consistent. I think it's very, very important. So I tend to look at definitely on field is a huge part of our success, but there are other things that I'm trying to quantify as we are in it for a long run, and we want to make sure that the club continues to grow and increase its footprint.
All right. Being in it for the long haul, like you said, is very important, especially at this sort of lower league level of soccer. In terms, you look at sustainability and success, quote unquote, in so many different ways in marketing on field. You wear many different hats for the club, I know. Do you have a favorite sort of like aspect around what you do with the club?
So the big part of it is the helping. And it's helping. It's really it's Bilal and Simon and Bruno and you that actually put together the brand of the club, but it's helping with that. So anything from trying to figure out how can we bring some of the digital marketing best practices, how can we grow our social media presence, how can we continue to tweak and change and make our YouTube presence bigger. So that's kind of from the longer term. I do have access to lots of insights, materials, research about kind of the professional sports, how they operate. So helping the other owners kind of understand some of the trends and tendencies of just a broadly sports. So linear TV is not what it used to be.
Right.
Lots of clubs and leagues are leaning towards direct contact with their fans.
Yes.
So kind of modeling in a way on some of those trends and bringing them here. An example would be when we started the first year, which is still, I think, from the owner perspective, your favorite because it's your baby and you have no idea what to expect. So what people might not remember right now is that when we announced the club and when we came here was exactly the same time that Michigan announced a certain coach to join Michigan football.
Yes.
So from the marketing perspective, we were competing with the craze of Arbor.
Right.
So how do you break through the noise? How do you make your story relevant? And yes, there's a core of soccer fanatics, or people that were starved for that sport.
Right.
But we needed to think a little bigger. So that's where digital marketing came into place. We actually we leaned on digital media so much that at the end of the season we created a Google AFC and Arbor case study, which actually talked about how can a club on a limited scope and limited budget effectively use digital media to try to establish the presence and build a brand.
Interesting. I didn't know you guys did that. That's very cool.
Actually, I get a kick out of it because I meet with lots of owners or marketing managers of professional clubs, some of the biggest names in basketball, football, and I showed them, walked them step by step through what AFC and Arbor did first season to show them that they can do it themselves.
Wow.
So that's kind of the amazing part. So that's kind of the what I can bring to the table on the broader marketing side. The game day is for me. It's an opportunity to spend quality time with my two boys. So Jacob and Noah, 16 and 12, have been not just coming to games since the very beginning, have been working games.
Yes, Bilal mentioned Jacob works very heavily with the merchandise stand and that sort of thing.
Yes, and it's really pitching in whenever necessary. So the first season, it was just cleaning the stadium before we had people coming in. We still in many times after the game, we get some of the volunteers and my kids join in picking up the stands afterwards. In between, helping with merch, selling water, being a runner, just bringing things here and there. That's kind of the amazing thing. Helping with ticket sales, really anything that's necessary, and seeing them become attached to the club also from their perspective. The sense of ownership. They think of it as their club because they love the players, they follow the team, but they contribute their hours and their child labor, if you will, to making it a success.
Absolutely.
Which is great for any parent, I think, and for me especially, to have something that we can bond over and work together on.
I think that's something I always like talking to people about, how they and their actual family are related to the AFC and Arbor family, because I have experience with that too, because neither of my parents were that big into football or soccer. And I kind of finally dragged my dad into watching Liverpool with me to the point where he texted me asking if I were watching them on Sunday. We're filming this on a Monday yesterday. And he texted me, he'd be like, Firmino works so hard and Milner's my guy. And I'm like, he knows all the players.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
It's very funny. And I brought my mom to the games before as well. So it's always fun to hear about how the community and the family itself are just so related in terms of the
absolutely. I don't think you can, to build an authentic club. And, right now, kind of, our unofficial slogan became AFC family.
Right.
And it became organic. Like, we didn't lead our first season with "we will be about family."
Right.
That, in a way, would be almost like misleading. Like, it
seems almost facetious.
Exactly. It has to happen kind of by itself. So after a couple of years, we realized it's like, yes, ownership group. We contribute a lot during the games. We have family members that do a lot. That there's lots of volunteers. You are a great example. People that bring in kind of their families. We treat each other and our players as such. So then it became more of a representation of what it is, rather than we will create a marketing gimmick around it and try to kind of pretend that that's what we are. And I do think having that connection is, and making it genuine is very, very important. Again, because we think of ourselves as being part of a community so much.
Right. The spirit of the club, I think, is very much family-based, and not just community, but with all the people around it as well. I think the club does a great job of making it clear that that is what it's about.
We try, yep.
All right, last question for you. It's the big one. I always close all my interviews with this, but in all your time with AFC Ann Arbor, what is your favorite memory?
So I'm gonna bring two of those. Actually,
absolutely.
Having listened to the pod, I anticipated that. So
perfect.
So the first one, again, our first game.
Oh, of course.
So and technically it was preseason San Marino. We had no idea what to expect. We wanted a lot, and so actually Tuna, Matthew Altruda, and I were working ticketing. We were kind of outside of Pioneer, and I remember it was kind of late arriving crowd, and people were at first trickling in, and it was just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have like 20 people, I'm gonna have 50 people. And then all of a sudden, like, the cars started coming in, and there was this huge crowd coming into the one gate that we had open, and just realizing. So first of all, like, trying to take everybody's tickets and get them paid for, and we had credit cards and cash. So there was this chaos. It was the first time we might have done a run through, but it wasn't kind of like a real thing.
But like it's exactly.
But realizing and actually seeing that the labor of your love is happening, and people are coming in and getting the reception that we get that first game is something I'll always remember. Another one was 2 seasons ago when we lost the heartbreaker in Detroit versus Detroit City, and people know this game and talk about this game. So for me, the highlight was slightly different. So I was there with Jacob and with Noah. So Noah back then was 10 years old, and the game has its ebbs and flows. We had 2 guys sent out. We came back to tie it. Actually, it's so funny because this is one game that I haven't heard Keyword being so quiet and then so loud within the span of 10-15 minutes.
Right.
Well, one of the players, he played for us only that one season. Jep, he got subbed in, and then within, I think, 10 minutes, he actually got red carded, and then he got sent out. So he was devastated. We lost the game. We were walking out, and we have tears in our eyes, and Noah, my 10-year-old, is devastated. He's really, really sad. He's crying, and Jep walked out of the locker room, and he noticed Noah, and he took his silver gold second place medal and he put it on his neck.
Wow. And
Noah was like, you could see in his eyes how much that little movement. Yeah. So he literally slept with the medal for 2 nights, didn't take it off for entire weekend, and it was this realization that you have a player who was in our team. He's not a local guy. He played for us for only one season. He made a difference in a young child's life, because that's something that Noah still talks about, and he still brings it up, and the medal hangs in his room, and he felt like a winner even though we lost. So for me, I think that was something that really sticks out, and it's the bittersweet because we lost, but a favorite memory.
That's such a great story. That's one that I did not. That's incredible. It's just nice to hear that, like, even sometimes in defeat in games, there's always different, like, life lessons that you can take from any sort of sport.
Absolutely, I think that's exactly it. It's life lessons. It's I mean, sports and winning all the time is great, but it's not winning at all costs, and it's doing the right things, and it is making the difference. So
absolutely, Mike. Thank you for this. Is the first time I think we've ever properly, like, sat down and talked as well. So that's right. Very exciting. Thank you very much again for
all right. Thank you, and again, thanks for doing it. It's
of course.
It's having the podcast. I look at the stats and stuff like that. So I know on YouTube, just looking quickly on our channel, we have viewers from all over the world. So like spreading the message and talking about the club is I think it's very, very important. So thank you for doing that. I think with starting at kind of volunteer part-time right now, doing the podcast, I know it's a big commitment. So I appreciate what you do.
Of course, I'm happy to do it. Thank you. Cool. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Take care.
Thanks.
We are back here with AFC Ann Arbor men's goalkeeping coach, Jeff Shuk. Jeff, thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, what I wanted to talk to you about was, let's get into your career as a player first, before you even were a coach. How did you fall in love with the sport?
Wow. A long time ago, back in the 70s, when everybody else was playing baseball, basketball, and football, for some reason, a buddy of mine signed up to play and asked me to come. And at that point, just fell in love with the game. I couldn't believe it. Always active, always engaged, versus playing baseball where...
Lots of standing still.
Yeah, you wait 9 times to swing a bat, and hopefully someone hits a ball to you. Soccer was far more engaging and exciting for me.
Now, are you from the area?
I am. I grew up in Dearborn Heights.
Okay.
I played in the Dearborn Heights Soccer Club growing up before I moved out west to Reno as a teenager.
So another downriver person. I'm from Wyandotte.
Okay,
so
there we go.
Know all about Dearborn
48127.
Absolutely. And then you played a bit in the NPSL and elsewhere. Can you take us through some of your career?
I grew up out west playing out in Reno. I moved back here, played a year at Schoolcraft College. From there, went on to play in some amateur leagues, and then landed with the Detroit Wheels in the USISL. Mm-hmm. That was a very short-lived league, like most pro leagues in this country were.
Right.
And after there, met a wonderful group of guys, Rod and Wad Sana, who ran the Detroit Arsenal. We played there. We won the U.S. Amateur Open Cup in '99 and in 2000. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I thought I was stepping away from my playing days. At 30, I was married, had kids. Then the NPSL started and got the call back to be a coach with the team and an emergency backup.
Okay.
At 35, that sounded like a good thing. And it did not have to play the entire season. Mm-hmm. And it only came close in the national championship game when we were in the 118th minute, still 0-0. And the coach gave me the look like, if this goes to penalty kicks, you're going in.
Oh, boy.
And we scored in the 119th minute to win the first NPSL championship.
You just need to tell you that earlier to score.
Yeah, no, that was enough adrenaline for me for that weekend.
That's a heck of a story. So you've been a NPSL winner before.
Yes.
Is that something that provides extra insight on you as a coach at this level?
A little bit. The league has changed greatly from those first 2 years that we were a part of it before the team went defunct. Mm-hmm. It was small, much more regionalized, and the teams had a little bit different makeup. It was more... I'd call it retired pros with a few college players augmenting the team. Mm-hmm. And now you come back and look at the league is huge. I mean, we're at 100 plus teams. And then the team makeup is very competitive current players who come together, and there's a big change every year in each team's makeup. So we're back when we'd play Milwaukee, who was a huge rival. It was the same guys every year. Now, when we play Grand Rapids or Detroit, the teams they're greatly changed every year.
Would you say that's the biggest difference between the league from then and now?
That and the organization itself. It is highly organized. Everything is run at a much more professional level, which would be expected. I mean, anytime you start a league, you're going to have growing pains. And now the league, 15 years later, has worked through most of those and is an unbelievable organization to be a part of.
Now, when you were a member of the Detroit Arsenal, when you won the NPSL, you mentioned you were also a coach with them as well. How did that coaching start?
Well, I was coaching long before that, but it was one of those where they knew that I knew the group of guys, still had the respect of the players, and it was the extra bit where at 35 I could be the backup if needed.
Right.
So I was like a 2-for-1 deal.
Now, your coaching started before that. Can you take me through the steps of you deciding, I want to be a coach? How did that happen?
I'm not really sure when that moment happened. It just sort of organically happened. People would call and ask me to train their son or daughter as a goalkeeper. And then from there, hey, do you want to coach a team? So at 21 or 22, I was asked to coach a few teams and then started taking my coaching license through the USSF. Got involved with the Olympic Development Program, got involved with a couple established youth clubs, was lucky enough that people trusted me enough to start teaching coaching courses and then get involved with the regional level with ODP. So it sort of all just had happened quick, and I just rode the wave.
Now, how did you meet Eric Rudlin?
Through coaching education. We're both instructors with the Michigan Youth Soccer Association. So we met teaching courses together, and then we ended up working together in the same youth club. And then this sort of just once again he was looking for a goalkeeping guy, said love to give it a try, and the relationship's been good.
Do you have, in terms of the NPSL level that you're the coach at right now, do you have a favorite aspect of coaching those sorts of players?
I like the young, competitive guy with a lot of drive who's looking to make it to the next level. That being said, still my favorite guy to coach so far here was TJ Tomaso, who was well beyond the level. He was at the end of his career, former MLS guy. But he still had the drive of a young player. You couldn't tell TJ at 33 from an 18-year-old. The competitive drive, the willingness to show up day in, day out, first guy there, last guy to leave. And that's sort of the mentality and makeup of the player who I like to coach.
Can you walk through some of the differences between coaching that sort of high-level player and more a youth aspect?
There's with the youth players who I deal with, I'm very fortunate. They're at the high end of the scale, so there's not a whole lot of difference.
What level youth player do you coach generally?
So I coach at the Michigan Rush Soccer Club. I'm the goalkeeping director there. So most of our goalkeepers there are above the curve in terms of development, and we're looking to place them into the appropriate college programs. A couple of our guys are actually looking to play at this level. So.
So you do have players at around that like 18-year-old level, that sort of thing.
We have them. I deal with from 10-year-olds to our graduating high school seniors. Okay.
So in terms of that as well, I mentioned your playing career and how that might affect your keeping coaching. Does that also, do you take elements from that to the NPSL level as well?
No, with the NPSL, it's a lot. We have a plan for the year, what we're trying to do. It changes. Obviously, 2 years ago with the club, when we had TJ, he went an entire year, no injuries, and he played, I think, almost every minute of every game until the last regular season game. So we had our routine, we had what we were doing, and then last year was exactly the opposite, where we went through, I think, 4 goalkeeping injuries in the first 4 weeks of the season. So we were trying to figure out how are we going to make this work, and our plans, they changed greatly.
What things do you have to take into account when injuries happen? How fast do you go through those motions of change?
Well, the good thing is we've planned that we have our hierarchy between Eric, myself, Rod Boise of who our goalkeepers are, who's going to play in which matches based on what's going on in their training cycle. And we're never caught without at least 3 guys in training. Often we have up to 5. So the injuries, while they made us make adjustments, we still weren't caught without a quality guy there. Like last year when we lost TJ with the broken hand, and then we lost Nick with the broken thumb, we had instantly insert Hunter right into the lineup, go on the road to Milwaukee, and throw a shutout.
Right.
So we have a very deep crew every year in goal, and we're comfortable with that.
Now, speaking of goalies from last year, Mike Novotny is now playing at the professional level. What's it like having a player that you coached at this level go on to a professional level?
Well, it was exciting. It was great that when Hartford signed Mike, a good friend of mine's the goalkeeping coach at Hartford.
Okay.
So a week before, George Costellas gives me a call. Hey, do you know this Mike Novotny guy? I said, yeah, I know Mike quite well. And he goes, hey, do you think he can play at this level? We're looking to bring him in. I said, George, I promise you one thing. Mike will not let you down. 2 days later, George calls and goes, yeah, you were right. So, and Mike was great before he got here. I don't want to take the credit from Mike. Mike was, a highly technical goalkeeper, great soccer acumen to go with it. So his reading of the game, it wasn't a coincidence. We had the lowest goals against last year with Mike in goal.
Right.
And throwing a guy like Stanley in front of him. And
it's not a bad defense.
No.
Now, what sorts of things do you personally look for in a goalkeeper?
Personally, what do I look for? Someone who can keep the ball out of the net. We're not at a point now where we get to bring in, this perfect prototype where we can say, hey, we'd like a guy who is as big as Courtois and can react like De Gea.
Right.
So we're looking for guys who are adaptable, can improv the game, are good shot stoppers, and then we obviously want them to be quality with both their feet.
Okay. Now, looking ahead to the season to come, is it with the roster still sort of fluctuating, is it difficult to look ahead and say, this is how I hope the season will go? Or I know when I've previously talked to some coaches, there's always this sort of, we want to win our conference, we want to do as best we can as the league.
Yeah, we definitely want to win the league. Mm-hmm. But right now the roster it's very fluid. So we don't know who for sure is coming in. I couldn't tell you who our pool of goalkeepers are going to be right now. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it's up in the air, but Eric always does a great job of bringing in quality men who are quality players, which translates immediately into being a great training environment. And I think we'll be solid regardless who he brings in. And I'm cool to work with anybody. So if you want to be an old guy like TJ, you want to be a young go-getter like Mike, we're going to have a great relationship.
What sort of things do you look for ahead? We're in the preseason stage of this season. What sort of things do you most look forward to for the season to come?
I love getting up in the morning and getting after it with the guys. Like I said before, the only bad days were the days off.
Yeah.
The environment's great. We show up, everybody's there, everybody works hard. And you can see afterwards, no one really wants to leave. Everybody's still looking like, hey, who wants to hang out and knock the balls? Who wants to do a little extra pro time? It's a wonderful environment to be about. It's more like a family than just a team.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of it as more of a family as a team, they're very involved. AFC is very involved in the community. Do you have any favorite sort of outreach, or do you see any buzz in the community about AFC?
This is being as busy as I am, and I'm not trying to make excuses, but a wife, 2 kids who are both players, I've had limited time to be involved in that part of the club. I also live a little over an hour away, so when it comes to those programs, I've yet to be a part of any of those. So I'm looking forward to trying to make an attempt this year to be a little more accessible to those.
In terms of AFC as a whole, the organization, as you mentioned, there's a hierarchy. It's very structured. How does that help you formulate in plans for the season to come? I know you said there's sort of a hierarchy of goalkeepers that you may have. Does that are there any other aspects that that sort of organizational structure helps with?
Well, it makes it possible to be a part of. Eric lays out sort of an organizational structure early in the year of when we're training, what we're training, how often we're training. And those of us who are very busy outside of AFC can start to plan our life around that.
Right.
Thank God my wife and my kids are so understanding, so I can do this. And it also helps that we train early in the morning. So in the summer, by the time I'm back home, you
get to have that family time. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, for those who may not know about goalkeeper training, can you take the listener through what a traditional, quote unquote, goalkeeper training would be?
I'm not sure there's a traditional one anymore. The position and the training of the position has changed greatly from when I was a player back in the 80s and 90s to where we're at now. It's a lot more integrated with the team.
Yeah.
So we get some time together before things start to work on some nuanced technique and things that might be applicable to the upcoming games or issues we had in the past games. But we like to do most of our coaching in small-sided games or in our full-sided scrimmages. So It's not a whole lot different than coaching an outfield player.
Okay. Now, Bruno off camera told me that there is a quirky reason to why goalkeepers train alone. Is that true?
I have no idea what that reason is. It might be because a lot of the guys in their gloves don't smell great. But no, they're just as much a part of the team than anybody else.
Yes, especially in a club like AFC, where I've been to a couple practices when I wasn't affiliated with the team, and you see a lot of that involvement with, player or keepers are involved in these sorts of training aspects and activities.
Yeah, and we want them to continue to develop as all-around soccer players. So we have them in a lot of the small-sided games using their feet to make sure they aren't falling behind. So we do some extra work before everybody shows up. Often we'll stay after. But for the meat and potatoes of the practice, they're in with the team.
Now, in terms of training techniques, as you talked about, you mentioned going out and actually doing it. Do you yourself watch a lot of footage or of either AFC or the professional level to incorporate techniques?
We watch tons of footage with our guys. We'll go over games. We'll watch the highlights. And then when it comes to watching the game on a world stage, if I were to go through the last 7 days, I'll bet you I've watched at least 20 full matches. And then I get yelled at home, why is the DVR full of games? Can we delete those? No, I've only watched that one 4 times. I got to watch it 2 more times. So yeah, we watch a lot. We go back over what's working in current trends in goalkeeping, what's not working, why isn't it working, and does it apply to our current crew of goalkeepers?
Do you have a favorite league to watch in terms of world football?
Yeah, the English Premier League.
English Premier League?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Any particular reason? Just style of play or?
The speed, and how on any given day the 20th place team can knock off a top 4 team.
We almost saw, my side is Liverpool, and we almost
Sorry to hear that.
It's all right. I've been told similar things, but we saw, like you said, they almost drew with Fulham, who's 19th. Mm-hmm. It was like you said, it's an incredible league to watch.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of veering back towards AFC, do you have any particular memories of your history with AFC that you say that stands out as something that I really enjoyed?
I've only been apart for 2 years, and they were both very successful years, but we still fell short in both those. I think my best memories, and this is a credit to Eric allowing certain people and certain players to have some freedoms, is TJ and I used to drive to the games together.
Okay.
So the team was on a bus, but the 2 old guys, we got in the car, we drove off. And one of the funniest stories was my daughter was in the back seat.
Okay.
And she's a goalkeeper as well. She had saved a penalty kick on the weekend.
Okay.
So now we finished the game. TJ had saved a penalty kick, which he had done hundreds of times in his career. But my daughter, being young and a little naive, we get back in for the ride home, and she pats him on the back and goes, "Welcome to the club. You saved the penalty kick." And TJ played along. He was wonderful. He was great with kids, and just looked back and goes, "It's great to be a member."
Talking about those road trips at the NPSL level, are those things that you enjoy, that you look forward to, or are you like, you'd rather avoid them?
They're fun. when they're over.
Yeah, that's fair.
I've missed both trips to Milwaukee.
I was going to say Milwaukee's always the big one people talk about.
But the day hits to Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids are all good trips. We're in and out. I still love going down to Detroit to play. The atmosphere, the crowd, it's always a little more there.
Do you have a favorite away venue? Is it Keyworth, or do you have another favorite?
It would be between playing in Grand Rapids or Detroit. Both stadiums are good for the game. The crowds are awesome. A little bit different in the makeup of how you're treated, but both very loud and very active audience.
When we did our season preview, those were 2 away games that we circled and said those are always rowdy crowds. So it's nice to get confirmation from one of the coaching staff that it's exciting. Now, did you make the trip down to Indiana as well with the club? Or?
The first year.
The first year. That's a heck of a trip too.
Yeah, the bus driver, he swore that we were lost. He's like, I don't think there is anything out this far. And then we popped in the middle of the woods, and there was a stadium, clubhouse, and that was an interesting one.
That's always how much confidence does it give you when your bus driver says, "I think we're lost"?
Yeah, well, it wasn't the first time that's happened in my lifetime where a bus driver said we were lost. Often they were right. We were glad this time he wasn't. Were right.
Do you have, this can be as a player as well or a coach, do you have a favorite road trip story?
Not that we can tell on a podcast. No, there's not one that really, maybe the one the first year of the NPSL going out to San Francisco when we won the whole thing. The game was on TV there. There were 4,000 fans, and we were definitely the enemy. It was not looked well upon that a bunch of old guys went in and beat a very good team, and it was a hostile environment. And we always joked like somehow they were given 7 minutes of stoppage time in the second overtime.
Oh, wow.
So, and to win obviously makes it, one of the more memorable ones.
Trip out to San Francisco isn't that bad either.
Yeah, that was cool.
Do you, now as a coach within the region, have you stayed pretty much your whole life within the region?
Yes. Okay. When I started coaching, I've done everything here in Michigan or with the regional staff with ODP. So we deal basically the Midwest and a little bit beyond.
Okay. So this might be a little bit of a reach, but do you enjoy when AFC brings in local players that you may perhaps know? Or
doesn't matter
does
to
it
me.
Not make a difference?
I love working with quality players and quality people. Mm-hmm. So whether it's a guy coming in from Ann Arbor or whether it's a guy who's coming in from Kenya, I think it offers an awesome blend of personalities and life experiences, which makes this whole environment awesome.
That brings up an interesting point. What, in your opinion, would make up what some would call a successful locker room atmosphere? Does it something like?
I think it stems from Eric as the head coach. He's very clear on day one of what the club's objectives are. Okay. And if we're not all pulling in the same direction for the same objectives, those guys don't last long. And there's been good players who have been told, we don't need you, because they don't fit to push the way or pull the way the club's going. Right.
That's always so important because you always hear with people in the organization or previous players, they always speak so highly of it, and you can tell that there's a good locker room atmosphere.
Oh, it's outstanding.
In terms of, we are a couple months out from the season, a little less than 2 months, I believe. We're within the heart of the preseason. I know you're very busy, but are there any measures you take at this point ahead of the season to prepare for the NPSL year?
As soon as Eric will give me the complete list of players, I'll start doing some video review of their past college year or past NPSL or wherever they're coming from. So I get a little bit of an idea of what their capacity is and what they do well, what they could use improvement on.
Okay.
So just a little bit of video review.
Okay. That's always. Do you enjoy the video review aspect of the game?
I do.
I was gonna say you mentioned you have many games on your DVR. So
yeah,
I
then the computer hard drive has hundreds more, and then we keep a pretty good library on our players and players we're bringing in.
Okay. Final question for you. as a whole, AFC Ann Arbor as an organization, what's your favorite aspect about it?
The favorite.
I know.
I think the sense of family. Everybody here is so welcoming, very understanding. And whether it's been a week or a month or 3 months when you haven't seen somebody, you see them the next time, it's like a best friend you saw yesterday. Yeah. So the complete sense of family from the players to our staff to the ownership group it's been unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. That I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's the perfect leaving point for our interview. Jeff, thank you very much for coming out and taking some of your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. And we will see you next week on Welcome to Treetown. You can follow us on Twitter at AFC Ann Arbor and stay tuned to afcannarbor.com for any updates with the club. Until next time, I'm Ryan McCooch. Thank you.